Greetings, YouTube. Last month, someone sent me a PM about what my favorite villains were, either as a player or as a GM. Now, as a player, we faced a lot of old school style enemies, dragons, evil wizards, a couple of memorable vampire encounters. Vampires seem to play a fairly high role in the older campaigns I was in. I think it's because in many ways they were considered the top dog of the undead, one step below the actual lich. I don't know if I ever actually took a lich on. We did face Satan once in the Under the Storm Giant's Castle module from Judge's Guild, which is a nice read if you like a little bit of nostalgia in the old school vein. If you can get a copy of that, it's worth your time. And I was in a GURPS second edition GURPS Supers game, and Bill Gates was the actual leader of the evil cabal trying to take over the world. He kind of had the Lex Luthor role. We never got to take him on. The campaign never actually got to that point, but he was the guy that we were ultimately supposed to face, or lose to, and of course just be another notch on his bedpost. As a GM, I've used nobles in the past. I've mentioned that, and while they were entertaining at the time, none of them really stuck out in my mind. In the Overkill campaign, I used the mutant Braxeldrev. I used a number of out-and-out style superheroes. One was known as Black, and he was kind of a anti-hero. I used Captain Cupcake, who was an insane mutant who was convinced he was actually a real-life superhero, and he had his cookie commandos. He could actually telekinetically manipulate objects, and he manipulated cookie dough and made them into a little army of golems that followed him around, and he used them to harm people, or at least attempt to harm people. Because let's face it, cookie dough isn't all that dangerous. And I had a hard time thinking of any particular bad guys I used, to tell you the truth. A lot of them were just convenient, the odd alien invasion, the odd evil dragon here and there. The problem is that a lot of the campaigns never got to the point where I really got to bring out the big reveal. A lot of the campaign elements that I would have were things that were going on regardless of whether the players were going to be involved or not. They could affect the outcome, but if they didn't affect the outcome, these things would chug along on their own. And I was very good at not revealing these things to the players. It wasn't like a linear video game where I had to wait for them to push a button before the storyline would continue. The storyline would continue whether they pushed the button or not. And unfortunately, most of the campaigns never reached their fruition. The closest we ever had was the Overkill campaign, where the player characters were able to free the planet they were on, the planet Tau, from the oppressive machinations of the Empire of Humanity, which was quite nice. And they basically had achieved the point which would have been the jumping off stage for eventually leaving their star system and hopefully hunting down the aliens that had caused the war, and with any luck, repairing or rediscovering the jump gate system that would then allow them to connect to the other planets and hopefully get the entire intergalactic, or the galactic empire back on its feet. But we never got to that point. So I have to be honest, a lot of the villains aren't popping into my head. I've been thinking about this for the last 20 minutes or so before I started the camera up, and a lot of them just didn't seem all that memorable. And back when we were doing first edition, a lot of them were cookie cutter. To pop them up, you knock them down, you go on to the next guy. There were a lot of dungeon crawls back then that really had no justification for them. It was just a reason to go kill monsters and loot treasure and become uber powerful, so they can go kill more powerful monsters and get bigger treasure, which was fun at the time. But frankly, I don't know if I'm really into that particular mode of playing anymore. Though there's a certain nostalgic mistiness about the whole idea of just going out and killing some things purely to take their stuff. There's an orc, he has pie, what do you do? So I'm interested in hearing about the memorable villains that you have faced or memorable villains you have used as a GM. Um, let's get a conversation started, folks. Let the world know what you've used and what you've faced, so maybe they can use them again in the future against their players.